Is it visible? Okay. See? Yeah. So I guess we're live now. And I see people connecting. This is really nice to see people here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Viviana. I'm from applitracker. I'm very glad that you guys are here. Applitracker is, so to introduce myself and introduce what we're doing here, applitracker is it's a startup, and we are building a tool, digital tool designed to organize and to help manage effectively the job applications, because right now, as we all know, you have to do hundreds of them to actually get to land the job. And because we actually want to know more about the current state of the job market and how to navigate it effectively, we have here Rory Colgan, and I'll give you the stage, Rory, to introduce yourself.
Hey, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a design recruiter. I focused on recruiting design in the it started off as Berlin, but a more broader market space of Europe now. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and obviously I've seen like a lot of ups and sadly probably more downs than ups in my time doing this. And yeah, I just wanted to basically use today to give everyone a good overview of like I'll help people understand why things are why they are, give you some hints and tips about how to get through it, and yeah, how to almost make the search enjoyable, as well as some context behind like why you might not be getting responses, and hopefully try and help with that. So I've prepared like a talk where I'm just going to give an overview of the market, why things are the way they are, what is all this chaos, why does it exist, what are these factors, just to help you sort of like curb the stress and anxiety and make you realize it's not you, it is just the way things are at the moment. And then in the second part of it, I'm just going to talk through ultimately like what I do for my own like personal branding and business development, because effectively if I look at the way that I do new business, like trying to bring on a client, it's almost like trying to apply for a job. And it's, I think there's a lot of like parallels there with the amount of work it takes and the kind of eye-catching content you need to write and how engaged you need to be. Sadly, that's the level it takes now to like get a job. So I just wanted to give you an insight into almost how I run my business, how I win new clients, and hopefully you can apply that to your job search and help to get a job.
It sounds very exciting. And while you and I we dive into this, if you guys have any questions, please leave it in the chat, and we will tackle this at the end of the session. So let's just dive in head first, not thinking about it. The current job market.
Okay.
What would you say are the trends? What is so messy?
I'll try and keep it like as succinct as possible. I'd say like the job market in a word is just chaos currently, and sadly it's been this way for a few years. So there is definitely like a certain, like I myself, I had to just adopt this state of accepting the chaos and existing in it as well. But yeah, there's like lots of external factors that have created this sort of problematic space. Let's say like when I started doing this job, design was like a much less busier place. I'd say tech was generally a less busier, more specialist place. Obviously the whole like scene and market wasn't as advanced 8 years ago as it is now. But obviously with all this busyness, when you throw in these, external factors that have affected the job market, it's just created a really chaotic environment. So, I mean, I'd say COVID was obviously like a big hit for the job market and the global economy for everyone. We managed to get through this, and then coming out of COVID, what we saw was like a huge, like rapid amount of growth in hiring. Lots of tech companies were getting funding. There were a few success stories with apps even within the pandemic. And, coming out of that, I don't know if like VCs just saw it as like a great way to secure more funds, but there was just this great phase post-COVID where, yes, we're allowed outside again, horrible virus has gone away, and all companies were looking to hire. Boot camps were thriving. I'd say there was a lot more like leadership and management roles. There was a lot more work around generally, and it was a lot more of a stable economy. And that just led to like a really sort of healthy time in the design industry, in the tech industry, marketing, hiring in general. It was a great time. And then obviously, sadly, things can only go up for so long in one direction. And unfortunately, it feels like the kind of marking point for this turning around and starting to fall apart was probably not directly, but it's definitely a factor on it. Was like the war in Ukraine definitely slowed down the economy quite a bit. And then I think, or I know also from speaking to like hiring managers, that one of the key factors with this whole like downturn in growth was the fact that companies were just growing far too quickly, and it just wasn't sustainable. It was kind of like this knock-on effect of like one economic problem, i.e. problems created by the war in Ukraine, just having this trickle-down effect of people spending less money, XYZ. So it took a little while for it to happen, but surely over the space of about 6 months, it just felt like everything just completely fell apart in the world of hiring. We saw mass layoffs from companies, done in like a pretty bad way, to be honest. And I think, again, this is a bit of a domino effect. I think some big companies started making quite significant layoffs, and then that obviously has an influence and a trickle down effect on lots of other companies as well. I'd say generally this was more prominent in the space of like consumer products as well, because it was relating to people not having as much disposable income as they used to have, and everyone getting used to these nice big salaries that we had coming out of COVID. So obviously, this affected like B2B products also, but I'd say consumer facing apps, generally, sadly, people's kind of dream jobs that they landed were the kind of spaces that were most affected. Since then, I'd say like 2023 was just generally like a really slow, depressing, dead year for a lot of people trying to find a job. It was a real struggle. 2024 last year was also really hard, and it's starting to pick up now. But you have to understand that like there's a huge amount of people applying for like any job and every job, and that's why we have all this chaos here. So you have factors like the economy, obviously it's the big one, but it's understanding like the trickle down effects that has on everyone. So people getting laid off, people applying for jobs, trying to find work. I'm a big fan of boot camps because I've changed career a couple of times in my life, and I feel that people should have access to the kind of careers and work they want to. But I think boot camps could do better at managing people's expectations when they're onboarding them and selling the course to them, because boot camps churn out people at a really, really high rate. And in my experience, I think they're better at it now, but in my experience in the past, they sort of sell them as package where it's like, oh, if you do this course, then you can go and make X amount of money working at Google. And sadly, that's not the reality of it. But also, we're starting to see things being in like a more positive place, which I'll get into later in the talk. But yeah, those are just a few of the factors that have created the chaos we see in the job market now. So downturn in the economy, mass layoffs, and then now that everyone wants to start hiring again, you just have so many people applying for jobs. It's just such a busy space. And also one important thing to factor in is with the layoffs, naturally, when companies are downsizing, like it's recruiters that are hit first, because they're like, we don't need to hire staff, we need to get rid of them. So talent acquisition just goes straight away. Now that companies are looking to hire again, obviously they're bringing in TA people, but the teams are way smaller than they used to be. So if you imagine, let's say a big fintech like Klarna, for example, might have had someone specifically hiring design, several people hiring engineering, someone hiring product, someone hiring marketing. Now, more than often, it's just one person trying to cover all of this. So this means that person that's assessing all these applications, obviously super busy, has really stressful goals they need to meet as well, but also they won't have as much as a trained eye for things like understanding a design CV and understanding a designer's experience. They'll probably do what I call like vanity hiring. So like, has this person worked at N26? No, I don't want to hire them. So it's unfortunately just a bit more of a ruthless selection process, which personally I don't think is very helpful for either companies or people, either way, like candidates or clients. But there's ways around this, and like I said, I see more and more positive stories of people landing work through really pushing and sort of adopting the kind of stuff that I'm going to talk to you about today.
Yeah, so to understand, thank you for the overview, because I do think COVID, it's still a factor that we have assessed right now.
Yeah.
And then it's very exciting to hear the 2025 it's improving, we're up. It can be um, it can be a good year, specifically for designers and product, which is your people, let's call it.
Mhm.
But even though things are looking up, we are still in the you still have to go through the hiring processes. Could you
Mhm.
break down how the hiring processes are now? You already hinted a little bit, like it's now the responsibility might be into someone that might not be an expert
Yeah.
recruiter. So what can you
I've,
say?
I've always got a lot to say about hiring processes. So, I mean, personally, I still find them overcomplicated and needlessly long. I have a lot of problems with this, especially being like a neurodivergent person. I don't think hiring processes are diverse in any way, and that's also, I say that accounting for people I know that are parents. You know, it's this fact that like everyone's aspiring for their company to be like Google and have this really long hiring process. It doesn't make you better; it makes your hiring harder. But it's something I always challenge and try and change. I can't seem to impact that space myself, sadly. So yeah, I'd say one of the problems with hiring is the processes which these companies outline themselves. So they'll have really long hiring processes. You know, from a design perspective, usually 5 or 6 interviews. So just for some insight from inside the machine, how these things work, it's normally a first call would be like a talent acquisition interview. So, you know, back in the day when you had specialist design recruiters, this would have been great if you're a designer because you talk to them about design, they'd ask you good questions, the conversation would flow a bit more. Now it's, you know, someone with like 3, 5, 7, 8 years experience getting asked really stupid questions like, what's a double diamond? What's the difference between UX, UI? So there's this first stage of the process, which I'll say it 95% of the time is totally pointless. And then if you get through that, you get onto like an interview with a hiring manager, which is obviously a lot more of a better thing because you'll be speaking to someone that's not actually like an expert in their space and the space that they're hiring for, obviously hiring you as an expert in that space as well. So that'll be an interview that will flow a lot better and be a lot more informal. Typically after that, there's the design challenge, which all designers generally hate. Companies still feel the need to do it. It's something I'm going to be working on challenging for a project this year, which takes up time and is hard and is difficult. And this is the start of why hiring becomes so complicated. Because if you're, again, I'm talking about this from a design perspective, but I know like product roles, marketing roles, and engineering roles will also get homework. If you're looking for a job and then all of a sudden you get in these interviews and you have 6 or 7 of these case studies, it's just too much to juggle, and it just means that you're not able to like deliver on the quality. And I think it's problematic that companies make people with significant experience in a relevant field prove themselves in such a narrow window. And then following that interview, you'd have interviews with like product managers and engineering managers. Why I think these interviews are kind of flawed is because you have people that aren't specialists in a domain assessing people for their skills in that domain. And then usually after that, you'll have an interview with like a founder as well, which is generally like a lot easier than the others, but it can still go wrong. So I think the problem with hiring is a lot of people beyond the hiring manager have a horse in the race. And I understand that's important to a certain aspect when you're building a team. But I always feel like if you're a head of design hiring, you should be able to pick and choose who you do hire. I'm not saying every company's process is broken, but I'm saying that I think hiring processes in Germany are way too long and far too complicated. Again, on a positive note, I think more and more people have been challenging this and calling it out. And I think companies are starting to think like, why do we need to think like Google when we're a small startup of like 25 people? You know, I think companies are starting to do smarter hiring, because otherwise they end up having to give loads of money to recruitment consultants like me to do it, and everyone's trying to watch their pockets. So, you know, like I said, we're seeing positive steps in this space as well, but it's still far from you know, perfect. And you know, as much as I love Germany and the people there and my life there, I understand that like German hiring processes, it seems to be a lot more longer and complicated and slower than it is in other countries. So, for example, in the UK, typically a design hiring process is 3 interviews, and you know, you'd get a job offer within 2 weeks. So, again, I understand this cultural things like Germans being very process driven, but there's also things as well that we need to take into consideration. Like, you know, German employment law is great because it offers you a lot of protection as an employee. So when you do get this job, it is great because you do get really looked after, and companies have to, you know, you have this safety net from the state if you do lose your job, and also companies need to provide you with you know, your healthcare and things like that as well. It's just a long way to get to that actual point. So yeah, very long, slow, fragmented processes combined with a huge amount of applications and then a reduced talent acquisition team, and the fact that teams are generally smaller and doing more now creates this sort of world of chaos that we're having to exist in.
So how could, with this, I really like the way you're expressing it and precisely calling out there are steps that we could skip, that
Oh yeah,
they're
this is all very cathartic.
redundant. I also like that you are saying that it's changing a little bit, but how could job seekers manage their expectations throughout the process? Because then we're talking about that it's not a process that will last a week. We're talking probably weeks, months.
Yeah, it's hard to give like a cold, hard data driven answer on that, because every company like moves at a different speed, has different expectations, and this is also why it is really complicated and chaotic. But it's all character building. If you can get through it, you'll be a really strong person when you do land that job, which you will land eventually. I just say that the story I tend to see when people post on LinkedIn about landing a job is generally a tale of 6 months of perseverance. And like I don't like the fact that it is like that, but sadly it seems to be like the normal time frame for things now. The last candidate I helped through a recruitment process, I was working directly with a founder, and it was quite a short process, but even then that still took us like a month or so at least. Yep. So yeah, generally, like, you know, once you're in the interview process, probably expect to do 1 stage every week. But you know, when you have a 6-stage process, this could take up to 6 weeks. And another thing as well to manage your expectations, if you know, applying for jobs or doing interviews and not hearing back within a week, don't write that opportunity off. You know, I'll talk more about this in the second part of the talk, but like, things just take a long time, sadly, way longer than you need to do because of all this chaos. But it's just, you know, to help manage expectations, it does take a while. Again, you know, I think we all kind of leave university or boot camps like, right, now I'm going to apply for a job and get it. It's not that simple. But again, this is all really like character building stuff. And I always say to candidates that I'm working with that are struggling that every interview is just great practice for when you're interviewing for the job that you really, really want. Okay.
Okay, I think this is a good, I like this phrase. Every interview that you're making is preparing you for this wonderful dream job that you will have, or interview that will have in the future. So I think we now know exactly landscape, general, what is happening, but I will want to now know a little bit more about personal branding. You spoke about it before. You said you as an individual, as a recruiter, as a freelancer recruiter, you also take care of your own personal branding. So for designers and products, what would you say? How can they stand out? Let's say, I don't know, on LinkedIn or Behance or Dribbble, all of these platforms that are more, they're generally more targeted to design and product.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone working in technology can utilize, or even beyond that, like any industry where they use LinkedIn, you can use LinkedIn to like really boost your personal brand. And I mean, this is the thing about it. There's no like rule book on like do or don't. It's about your like own style and your kind of tone of voice. But some like, there's something we have in sales, which I was taught when I first started doing my job, and it was about creating like 12 touch points. And I think this is a mindset that's really helpful to adopt when you're, you know, applying for loads of jobs and getting nowhere. Is like, again, we could talk about this a little bit more later, but it's about building a system. And the 12 touch points being like, you know, you could send a cold email to a client or try and cold call them. Obviously, they just hang up the phone or they'll ignore the email. So you try and call them again. I don't do this anymore because it doesn't work. But or what I do is send a follow-up, then another follow-up. So you have like a few touch points there, but the whole theory is like over time, if you keep on just, you know, my old manager used to say it's like having a garden with all these different plants growing. You just need to water everything at a different time, and eventually it'll all grow and come right. So it's about perseverance and not being too overbearing, understanding that, you know, people are busy, but also not giving up on things. So trying to go back to the whole 12 touch points thing, it's about creating visibility for yourself, because the whole theory of this is once you've had like 12 interactions with a person at a company, they'll like subliminally remember you. So it might be the fact that, like, you know, they had one job open, you applied to it, you commented on that person's status about it, you sent them a connection request, you engaged with some of their content, you shared them an article that you'd written or something like that, or engaged them on other social media platforms or whatever. It could be the case that when they open another job and you go and apply, your CV will pop up and they'll be like, why do I know that name? You know, it's about
Oh,
building that kind of familiarity for your brand. And yeah, this is also how you build personal brand. So just about trying to increase visibility in the space. And I think, like, especially with design and product, people are generally really engaging and quite helpful on LinkedIn. Like everyone, there's a lot of like interesting discourse on there, especially now that, you know, we have all this like fear of AI and all this kind of stuff going on. So people are always posting content, and obviously the reason people post content is because they want to grow their personal brand. So the more you engage in it, the more you're doing each other favors with it almost. So I'd say, like, and it's easy for me to say this, I've been doing it for years, but the best thing to do is just don't be scared, don't be anxious, just start doing it. Like everyone hates writing to strangers on the internet, like myself included. The more you do it, the easier it gets, and eventually it becomes enjoyable. And I'd say, you know, when you are starting to do this and you're like starting to have people connect with you or like comment on what you're saying or comment on your content or like it, just slowly but surely just build like a little database of these people that you know engage with you and come back to you, because that's all really helpful stuff. And I know this might seem quite like long and overwhelming, but oh god, it's another thing I have to do. But it's almost like just building a little phone book of the people that you know would be, you know, do you have time to engage with you and understand you and stuff like that, and it will just grow and grow and grow and grow. So the best approach for this is just the case of like little and often. So, you know, boring old school term, but like KPIs are good with this. Just set yourself like 5 tasks to do 1 week, or 10 tasks or 20 tasks to do another week. You know, is it connection requests? Is it writing a personalized message to someone you don't know? Is it sharing a bit of content? You can, you know, structure these however you want. What I do to make it less mind-numbingly boring is I gamify it. So it's like, oh, I've done 20 of those this week. Next week, I'm going to really push it and try and do 25. And again, it's about monitoring like what you're putting out and seeing what gets you responses. Because if you know, send a message where it gets a really good response, or you try something that works really well, like make a note of that, because it's like, right, you've created something there which is proven to be effective. So always be trying new things, but always have that one thing that you know works, to just do that as well. Because there is no, I mean, obviously there's wrongs with this to a certain extent, but like ultimately there's no complete like perfect way of doing it. A lot of it's about figuring out what suits you best, what's most importantly, what's manageable for you, what's not going to stress you out, what suits you best, what feels productive and what feels comfortable, and just setting that as a base level and keeping on doing that, and just ever so incrementally keep on taking it up a notch. And it feels like it's going nowhere. Like, trust me, it took me about 1.5 years as a recruiter to win a client, so I know how that feels. And that was in a high pressure environment, but like, you just have to keep at it and eventually it'll all start coming back to you.
okay. So I would say you're touching base on networking, which us here, every time we have a content in applitracker that we're posting any recommendation, we always talk about networking. And you
Mm-hmm.
pretty much summarize how to do it digitally, but how to combine the digital part with the offline, because the good weather is coming. So now Berlin has, or at least Berlin in Germany, the events are coming, spring. So now you actually get to meet people because you
Mm-hmm.
want to. So how to combine these two? Because sometimes I actually see people that I follow digitally, and then I see them physically, like I know them, and I approach them, and it's a little bit like we
Yeah,
don't know each other.
I was always the opposite. I'd be out like enjoying the sunshine in Berlin. People are like, oh, it's like, no, not today. It's my day off. I spend a week talking to people. But no, so what is really positive about like product design, tech, marketing, etc. in Berlin is like people love meetups, and I think they're great. You know, look, they're scary spaces for everyone. I suffer a lot of anxiety as like a neurodivergent people. I don't like being in busy rooms. I love talking to people for my job, but like my downtime is very much my downtime, and a very much a sort of introverted person below all of the LinkedIn noise. But a good way to like get yourself out there is going to meetups. Like my old manager, again going back to the sort of applying these sort of sales techniques to your job search, is, you know, we'd say in regards to terms of new business, he'd say like 1 meeting and handshake is worth like 10 emails. So it's like doing like 10 of those touch points all in one go. And what I love about Berlin particularly is the fact that the majority of people in that city have moved there from somewhere else in the world, which is why it's such an amazing place. And what's great about the meetups is that everyone in that room has been at their first ever meetup before. So, you know, if you're in the corner looking a little bit shy or nervous, like I have done and still do at meetups, like someone will come up and just be like, oh, hi, what's your name? You know, everyone's really open and engaging in these spaces. So as scary as they seem from the outside, and trust me, I get that fear myself still, it's just a case of just going in there and jumping in. And you'll just get talking to people naturally. And for me, like, I try not to be transactional at meetups. I try and just go there. I think the best thing you can do is to just go and be yourself and just be honest about your situation. There will be other people there that are trying to find work, and you know, there'll be people there that have been struggling to find work and have found a job, and will give you nice hints and tips and things like that as well. So it's, I don't want to sound too forceful, but I'd say it's really important to get into those spaces. If they're there and there's opportunity to meet people there, then you should go and do it. And then what I do with regards to the talks, because there's always a talk and they're always informal, there's a lot of information to take in. I always take my trusty old pen and paper. You can obviously do it on your phone as well. I'm just a Luddite. But like, I write notes on like things people have said that I think relate to me or I have an idea about or I think are important, and I always write down their name, and then I'll usually connect with them on LinkedIn after and use that as a talking point. So you can use meetups to just get some really good leads, and you know, generally like you'll build more LinkedIn connections through there as well. And it's just, theoretically, it's also great practice for interviews because you're talking to potential hiring managers, people with experience in that space. You know, a lot of trying to find a job in tech, if you don't have a lot of experience, is just fake it till you make it. And that's such a great playground to do it in. And once again, everyone's had to do this thing, so they're not as scary as you think. And generally people are really, really warming and helpful in those spaces. So I can't stress enough how good it is to get out to meetups.
Yeah, I think you're right that people tend to be very open, and especially when it's sunny. I think we are all in a better mood. Like not too sunny, like the right amount of temperature. I think it's nice. But I want to go back, like early before you mentioned something about making it gamifying the whole search for a job. So exactly how to make it a little bit more enjoyable. I've been through the process. It's not the most joyful
So
thing ever.
I'd say, because it takes so much work, you have to keep track of everything. And again, like, I'm an ADHD kid, so I love the idea of organization, but my life is a constant battle to try and implement it. So like, no one's perfect at this. As much as we preach it, very few people nail it. But it's important to try and make an effort, because you will end up sending hundreds of applications. You will have a lot of follow-ups to send, but it's about sort of creating this work for yourself, but making sure that this work actually leads into something. So what I'd say is, you know, if I was looking for a job now, I'd go through job boards on LinkedIn, look at all the companies that are hiring. I would not apply through the LinkedIn because they get hundreds and hundreds of applications. I'd apply through the company's website. But what I would do was, again, put this all in a sheet, whatever tool you like to use to organize yourself, be it Notion or a spreadsheet. Go onto that LinkedIn, that company's page on LinkedIn, and you can search for people there and just type in like product design, marketing, you know, find, you know, obviously people in the relevant spaces, like names, add them to the sheet, send them a connection request. You know, I send it with a message as well, like just a small amount of personalization with it. And then, yeah, just keep building on the work you put in, because, you know, some jobs, sadly, you will just be throwing your application into a void. But it's a case of, if you're going to go that far and send an application to that company, it's always worth trying to make a few connections there. You know, trying to follow up on those connections, trying to engage with their content. You'll build your own little system of like extra steps to take, because again, this is all about just boosting your visibility. It's about giving you as many ways to feel proactive as possible. Because like, I spent a lot of last year applying to jobs myself, and I know how much it can get you down when you're just hitting send and not getting anywhere. That's why I was like, right, I need to just be really sales driven about this and super proactive. So I was like, yes, I'll send the CV, and yeah, I'll probably end up in the middle of nowhere, but B, I'm going to make sure I do X, Y, Z. It just helps to, a bit hippie-ish with this kind of stuff, but it helps to create a bit more like positive energy about it. And it also just helps you to feel like you're getting somewhere. You know, you send out 10 connection requests, you get one back. That's, you know, you've achieved something that day, and that itself should be celebrated, because that helps you to lead towards building, you know, your personal brand on LinkedIn, and, you know, helps you to get one step closer to having a job.
I heard someone, and I find that interesting, going back to the gamification, that said that They were sending hundreds of applications during the week, and every time they got rejected, they did a setup. So this is the way they said, okay, let me mix my workout with getting rejected, so at least I find something. So I had like endorphins bubbling up in my
Yeah,
body.
exactly. A lot of it's about mentality. So I'm British, so I set myself like a target of like, right, if I can do 15 of these in an hour, I'm gonna make a cup of tea after that. I'm like, I really want to have a cup of tea, but I'm like, I need to do this first. So it's just, again, I think a lot of this talk is going to be about like trying to keep like a positive mindset and keep motivated when things are really challenging. And a lot of that is about inventing these little games of yourself and setting these little challenges. And yeah, just celebrating small wins, but also like trying to, incorporate, is it your exercise routine or other things into this as well, and seeing how you can, you'll probably see this a lot, but like looking for a job is a full-time job. So it's about, turning this into something, like applying what you've learned at uni on your boot camp, about, sort of structuring your workload, about being organized, about being pragmatic, about prioritizing tasks, about managing like inbound and outbound simultaneously. So it is effectively skills which will be relevant to you when you get into your job. I just know how like mind-numbing it can be just sending loads of applications and getting nowhere. So it's just about just pushing and pushing and pushing, but in a positive, happy way, which, make sure you leave your computer every day with a sense of achievement. Like, I didn't get a job, but I did do XYZ today, and always journal.
I like this. So I don't know if you have any other comments or you want to jump into the questions from our participants.
I think we've like covered pretty much everything. Let me just look through my notes quickly. Yeah, I'd say in a roundabout way, we've pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Okay, let's add more topics to the mix. So I have a question here from Daria, and she's wondering how everything is connected between the fact that Germany needs 1 million employees, but people still cannot find a job. What is the link between these two things?
Yeah, it's a weird, like, tragic comedy, that, isn't it? I don't know, because it's hard to see like what I read the statistic a lot. My parents thought, oh, this will be great for your business. I was like, I don't know if it is, because I don't know if those jobs are in technology or construction or hospitality. I'm only looking at the tech sector specifically. So yeah, I don't know the specific answer for that one, sadly. Also, something just came into my head that I wanted to share that could be useful. This is how I've discovered and won businesses as like clients for business. Is like, you can like make a list of like, find 20 profiles of designers, for example, or product managers, put them into a sheet, and then what you want to do incrementally, and it's a bit boring and tedious, but it will probably help you find a job, is go through every company they've worked for and try and connect with someone at that company. Because I still do this to this day, and what I do is I find dream clients that way, because I find clients that are, or companies that don't have a big LinkedIn presence, don't know how to make their product sound sexy and cool to a designer to attract them, but they need to hire. So it's trying to look beyond like what's right in front of you and trying to find some more kind of obscure, dare I say, boring companies that aren't as visible in the space, because they will have way less applications, they'll have way less people trying to connect with them. So it's a good way of trying to get some like really marginal wins in that kind of space. So trying to think outside of the job boards and LinkedIn and just be a bit broader with the search. Again, I understand it's a lot of work. I truly empathize with that. But it's easy to be heard in a quieter space than it is to be like shouting into a noisy pit of like job applications on LinkedIn, for example.
I think I would agree. Coming back to Daria's question, I have no proof of this, but I think in this specific case, maybe the areas that they require this, that there is this lack of professionals, might not be, as you said before, the sexiest areas of Germany, and then we tend to go to certain big cities because it's more attractive, there's more life, and in general, I think this is a trend. But now we have a question, well, two questions from Margarita. So Margarita is asking, what do you think about the design assignments during the job process, job selection?
Oh, God,
Pro, against?
Swearing. I think they're pointless. I think they discriminate people. I think they're a terrible way to assess a designer's skills. I think it's completely unfair to expect someone to assess like 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 years of experience in such a narrow window, which is like one design challenge designed by one person. Is I struggle to articulate it without using offensive language, so I won't, but I'm very anti.
I completely support this. Years ago, I hired designers, and often I had the question from my boss that why didn't we had an assignment for them, and I always said, you never know someone until you're actually move in with them. So
Yeah,
we had to hire them whenever because it's about how well connected you're with this person and if their entire character, let's say, won't disturb the team that you already have.
yeah,
But
exactly.
also, Margarita is asking if you know about how the market for the freelancer designers is right now.
Oh, it's chaotic. I haven't really done a lot of business in the freelance space for a while because it is just it's so obviously like when we started seeing all these layoffs, a lot of freelancers got cut off from their contracts and stuff as well. So it created a super hyper competitive environment there. And then because of that, freelance rates also dropped significantly. So as a recruiter, as a freelance, if I was working on a freelance job, I would get given like a budget of just because I'm bad at numbers and to make it easy, let's say €100, and then I'd be like, okay, cool. I'd take a cut of like 10% of that for my like finder's fee, and then the rest would go to the candidate. But when to me, it doesn't feel right when freelancers are struggling so much and there's so many freelancers out there looking for work for me to come in as a recruiter and then factor my budget into that. And also like because the freelance market is so busy, there's not really a place for the need for freelance recruiters at the moment because there is loads of freelancers out there looking for work. So it's become hyper competitive. It means that people are underpricing themselves and it's almost become like a race to the bottom. So sadly, the freelance market in my opinion, for design at the moment is not the best, and I can't see it recovering to like the point it was anytime soon.
Yeah, I would say also for freelancers in general, I see a lot of people struggling, at least on LinkedIn. They are constantly, as you said before, trying to shout in a very busy space.
Yeah.
So I think it's a current situation. It's not only for designers, but like for general. And then we have a final question from Thomas. Um, some time ago, I applied with a cover letter branded as the company logo and font when the font is free. And is it a good practice or is it a pushy move?
Nice. I like that. See, I'd really appreciate that if I received it, but you have to understand. Like, what I want to do is try and give some, or I hope I've done this today, is give some perspective of how it looks like inside the machine. So what people on the other side of that are dealing with. Like, for example, I used to manage my LinkedIn inbox incredibly well. I lost control of it in 2023. I put an hour a day every morning into just as I'm waking up on my first cup of tea, like trying to get on top of my messages. And I've been doing that for like a year now, and I'm still nowhere near. Everyone's inboxes are just bursting. So to go back to the question, like I like the fact you've done that, and for some people it might really jump out at them and really make them stand out. Personally, I think if you're gonna do that level of effort, it's good to go directly to the hiring manager with it, because they're the ones that will be like, oh shit, yeah, that's nice, that's an added touch. And hiring managers will probably hate me for saying this, but a good way to figure out people's email addresses is it's usually first name dot second name at company. So that's a good way to just get directly into someone's inbox. If you Google it, there's lots of tools out there for helping you to find people's email addresses as well. Don't be scared to write directly to the hiring manager. They won't always like it, but they'll appreciate where you're coming from with it. They won't always reply, but again, it's about trying to create as many opportunities for yourself as possible. It is sadly like a lot of work goes into getting these jobs, and sometimes putting up that extra bit of fight will make a design manager think like, oh wow, this person's like really, really passionate about the company and wants to join. Especially if you're writing them a nice, personalized, bespoke message, like either referencing a part of the product that you like or why you want to work to them, and it actually comes from the heart and it's really sort of specific to them. Those personalized messages are the kind of ones that are harder to ignore. And whenever I'm trying to win new business or trying to pick up clients, like candidates for a role that I've never worked with before, I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes on each message just to make sure that like I have this theory, because like I'm a nice guy at heart. I have this theory that like if someone puts in a lot of effort to a message to me, even if I didn't have anything for them, I'd always get back, because I'm like, it's rude to like not get back to someone that's clearly spent like 10-15 minutes crafting this message. Because I get loads of messages that are just like, hi. I'm like, what, where's this going? Why am I going to answer that? And I have to be kind of ruthless with my time now, because I need to look after my mental health in this kind of crazy job market. But A, it's fun to do a bit of research and learn about someone, and like B, I think personalized messages, being able to craft them is a really great skill to have. It's what's helped me stand out against other recruiters in a really busy market, because I get inbound traffic from recruiters and it's boring as well. It's like why would I want to join your company when you can't even be bothered to like learn anything about me, So just doing that little bit of effort. Sorry to take this really far, but it's something I'm super passionate about. Like, if you're writing cover letters, make sure you send them to the hiring managers with a personalized message and put some effort into that, and that should be reciprocated in their message. Probably a simpler way of saying it. So I really love the topic of personalization, and I think it's somewhere everyone can help themselves with it.
I completely agree with you at this point. And continuing with this, what advice would you say? What could people do to a little bit to stand out? Like, we're done with the questions in the chat. I don't know if anyone has another question, but what could they do? I actually saw a guy sending a cake, and he printed his resume on top of the cake and just sent it to the department that he was applying the job for. I found that crazy enough to make it memorable.
Weird episode of Black Mirror we live in sometimes. Yeah. So dystopian. I'd say, like, so again, to go back to the topic of personalization, it's like trying to, and I know it's hard, it's like making it enjoyable for yourself by learning how to write like bespoke personalized messages that stand out, and just like, sort of taking out a bit of extra time with the application. And even if you're sending like if you were just connecting with someone at a company that's not even looking to hire design, just doing a bit of that to just build those connections with companies that aren't looking to hire, just so you have that memorable connection already. Because I don't know, it sounds backwards, like, yeah, apply for jobs where there is no jobs, but like, I'm trying to talk through this as more of a long-term strategy about just not just trying to find a job in the immediate, but how to build like a network that can help serve you in the future when you need to find your next job. Is like, obviously do the tangible stuff you need to do, apply for jobs, send follow-ups, send emails, but also try and have some fun with just doing some like scary networking with strangers you don't know, sending personalized messages, getting ignored, getting told to go away. I still get it all the time myself. I've been doing it for years and I think I'm good at it, but like, you just have to like jump into it and keep trying it, and trying different things, and also making a note of what works, and trying to do a bit more of that. I hope that answers the question. I feel like I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, I get your point with the personalization, just to try to test, evaluate, iterate.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say. And look, it's something that, like, it's like everything. No one's good at it to start with. You just have to start it ultimately. This is every time I get stressed out in work, which is every day. I'm like, just got to do it. Like my jumper says.
What does it say? Oh,
just do it. It's Nike. It's not my own brand.
So I think we are in our final minutes. I really want to thank you, because I think you gave us very good tips and input on the overall for the job seekers, especially for designers and product. And also, I love that you got candid and then you gave your honest opinion of what you like and you don't like, and it doesn't seem then now you're part of those recruiters who are trying to change the way things are.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer we can, like, collectively we can have a positive impact. I think it's time we started challenging things a little bit more. But like, the one big message I wanted to leave with people today is ultimately, like, it's not you, it's them. There's so many external factors that are probably like keeping you away from getting that dream job that you're qualified for and you can do and that you deserve. And it's just all this chaos that no one wants in their life at all, or the job market, but it's sadly here. So that's why I was trying to just broadcast a bit of a message of, like, positivity and just trying to make it enjoyable and challenging yourself as well. I am writing some very long form content on all of this because I want to provide people with like examples of what I do, how to do it, like why it makes a difference and stuff like that as well. But obviously I've got a lot to say on the matter, so I've just got this scrolls of word vomit at the moment. I'm slowly refining. So I will be posting more helpful stuff on it to come, but hopefully this talk was useful for everybody.
So I would say with this just final remark that you make, it's more than enough reasons to follow Rory on LinkedIn. He's constantly sharing other job offers. So I would advise follow him. And now that he's sharing more tips on his magic, this is the only reason that you need it. And as for us, we appreciate you guys connecting. Again, we're applitracker. Here on the screen, you see the QR code to join our early access list. We will soon, very soon, launch the app and also announce the next webinar that will happen in late April. So just remember, we are aiming to help you stay organized and achieve the ultimate goal, that is finding a job. So thank you so much for joining, and see you another time. Thank you, Rory.
Cheers. It's tons of fun.
Bye.